definition descriptors if they apply.
And you only do that for flaws, right?
No, not necessarily. Some of these are proper and to style. But it should be a noticeable amount too. Would I really be checking off the estery box because it picked up a little bit of fruitiness? Not necessarily. What's the obvious one that we're going to be marking off on here? Starts with an A. Obviously. Yeah, it's got alcohol character. And properly. This is what we expect for the style. We need some alcohol character for a Doppelbock. It's what we expect. Most of these are flaws. Not all of them. Okay? Mark any check boxes we just did. Stylistic accuracy. Is it a classic example or is it not to style? It might be the top of the range there too, as it exemplifies the style, at least in very good shape. Flawless, or does it have flaws? We're going to be in the upper range in any case too, okay? There's nothing technically wrong with the beer. If you want to bump down a little bit because you want it to be a little richer, a little more malty, perhaps under the intangibles, you would not choose the top box there. Okay? I don't mean to score this all for you here, but just throwing out suggestions right now. When you're all done judging in a panel, go ahead and discuss your thoughts with your fellow judges. If other judges detect something you missed, see if you can find it. Adjust scores if needed to be within a consensus range. And that is why we use pencils instead of pens for this too, okay? There's nothing wrong with erasing as needed. Practice working quickly yet thoroughly so you can complete your individual assessment of a beer in 8 to 12 minutes. Consider for the exam being complete in 12 minutes. Complete means commenting on everything under the fine print. You can double check the cues when you're all done to make sure you got everything. Do this and you'll be a very good beer judge and score well in the exam. When you're completely done with an entry in 12 minutes or so, ready to move on to the next beer, make sure you pace yourself, take breaks as needed, keep your palates cleansed and stay sober. Although one can give a score to a beer based on the scoring guide box, you know, you see you have a great beer there and it's like, okay, I'm going to be like in the upper 30s, and then divide it amongst the sections. What we did first was we call the bottom-up approach, where we scored each of the sections individually too. The study guide outlines this couple different methods too. I would certainly recommend for the newer judge to do that technique by scoring the sections first, and then coming to the overall score. Regarding the sections themselves, it's probably best recommended to start a neutral point in the score and then work up or down from that based on any flaws or any positive qualities. For the aroma and flavor in particular, start at the midpoint, in this case 6, and then adding or subtracting as needed, adding to get to the ideal 12 if possible. This is something that your experience will help you out with. In other words, if you detect a little bit of diacetyl that's inappropriate, you wouldn't necessarily be taking off 6 points from it from the starting point, right? Okay. How much you add or subtract, you're going to learn through experience too. Consider that for the appearance section, with a total score of only 3, it's possible to be a little too harsh with this score. If you were to deduct 1 point for color being a little bit off, less than perfect clarity, and head that doesn't retain, would you really be scoring the section as 0? That would be a little bit too much. If you detected 1 point for each one of those, yeah, you would be a very, very rough on that. Okay. One way around that is to use half points, but then I'd add a half point somewhere else too in order to even out to make it easier. So consider also that each one of these might not be like a full point. I tend to not be as critical of home brews as well too. They don't filter their beers for the most part. And yeah, you can hold the commercial beers to a slightly higher standard if you want.
Quick question on the
Okay.
half points. I've actually received a judging sheet with half points on it. Is that not appropriate?
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong at all.
So, yeah, okay. I just...
That's a good question though. As you tone up your own technique, you're going to find out what works best for you. Okay. if you need to be real critical with the beer, that's the point where you start maybe taking off a little bit more too. I mean, if you had a 40-point beer, but maybe the appearance wasn't quite right, I mean, it wouldn't quite make sense to score it a 1 in the section. But I'll leave that up to you too. It really is still your opinion though, okay? Yeah, using half points is fine. I tend to like to add a half point somewhere else too, just for ease of adding up too. Something to keep in mind also is very important, especially for the exam. You don't score a beer less than 13. Not for the exam you don't, okay? You're going to score a beer less than 13 in real life, that's up to you as far as putting your head on the chopping block. That can be looked upon as being too critical. It will be looked upon as being too critical for the exam, and you'll certainly get a comment on that too. Experience will enable a judge to quickly assess an appropriate score for a beer within the first few sniffs and sniffs. Okay, in other words, as you sample the beer, you might already have a feeling of this is going to probably be in the mid-20s, or I got some problem that's going to be in the fair range or something. You can detect a great beer right away, can't you? You know about where you're going to be. That kind of helps sometimes as far as getting you in the ballpark for starters. Okay? If you're scoring a beer at 21, you're saying that the beer is good. Okay? Keep that in mind. And if a beer is in the 38, you don't want to summer up the overall experience by just saying good beer. That's a little too timid. If a brewer is making a great beer, by all means let them know it. You let them know it by telling them again. Okay? The great beer. Okay? Likewise, I've also seen some weaknesses of the sections not being aligned with the section scores not being aligned with the comments. Like appearance score of only 2, but no flaw being noted. That doesn't really make much sense. If something is not going to be a 3 for appearance, somewhere there should be something that implies that in the overall comments. As a grade, my response to that in their report to participant is, why did you only score it a 2? Okay? That's part of making sure that scores are logical and make sense. Okay? Same will happen to you if you not provide any feedback to the brewer if you didn't score a beer of 50. It's best not to score a beer of 50 for the exam, as it's very unlikely that the exam proctors will. Okay? The scoring accuracy is going to be based on how the proctors score the beers. But keep in mind that's only one part of your tasting score for the exam. Score sheet extras. Okay, look again at the score sheet in the aroma section. It says in the instructions, or what I call instructions, comment on malt, hop, esters, and other aromatics. Now let's get into what some of these others are. What are other aromatics that can be commented on, and are they style specific? Okay, does that make sense? Are they style specific? In other words, I'm looking for the others. A lot of them are going to be on the side over here. These aren't malt or hop characteristics for the most part. So what are the others we can comment on, and are they specific to the style? Do you want me to go ahead and throw out one already? This will lighten you up a little bit and conjure up some images. Other aromatics. Consider that DMS is an other aromatic. Okay? Is it style specific? Yes. To what styles or major categories would DMS be appropriate? Pilsners. So that covers about 3 of them right there, actually. Got Bohemian Pilsner, got German Pilsner, you got Classic American Pilsner. So let's take that a little more general, and this is going to help you on the exam, especially question T1. If we describe and discuss the following beer characteristics. All 9 pale lagers. All 9 pale lagers, as listed in the style guideline, can have some DMS. Is it required? Certainly not. But it can be something to look for also. And consider also that if something is not there, like with the hops or the Doppelbock, by all means mention that too. This is style specific, DMS. If you were judging a German Pilsner and had no DMS,